Hello to a new video. Today is Thursday, the 23rd of June 2016. It is 11:22 a.m. Central European Time. This is another various topics video. I wrote me down a sheet of very diverse little things that I want to comment once more. This time around, well, the last time around the topics were in no particular order. That was fine because they did not really lend themselves to being put in anything manifesting as a particular order necessary. This time around, some of these topics are more closely interwoven, and I could put them into all manners of particular order, but instead I'll just leave them as they are here. You will have to use your brains a little. I generally suggest using your brains. That is a glorious thing to do. I want to, before I get started, point out that I'm halfway through the dentist, so to speak. I have 3 teeth removed already, and it's a wee little bothersome, but that's all it is. There's, over these last few nights, there's also a video goes to show that I recorded the other day. I've been tortured alright, though they refrain from particularly adding body torture to the pain in the jaws from where the gaping holes now are, where there used to be teeth. Lucky me, huh? Today is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 little things for me to check here. I'll just start them as I wrote them down here. The first one here, I wrote this down in German. Den Reichen ihre Enteignungsängste nehmen, erklären, dass ihr Klumpert ist. Not that I think it is at all necessary. See, tons of what I try to explain, rationalize out in my videos, is things that is cases of me going way out of my way to explain to idiots how they should not be idiots. Things that are perfectly obvious to anybody in their right sane mind, but unfortunately the people I address out there are not in their right sane minds. And simply logical thinking oftentimes would make it needless for me to explain that to people, because they should figure that to themselves by themselves. And here on this topic, though, the dispossession of the rich, or the eating of the rich. Rich people have grown up in a society now for decades and decades and decades and decades, where completely grotesque, irrational fears weigh down on their minds. And as the Prime Minister of Freiland, I want to briefly address this. This is a situation that holds true very specifically for Freiland, though the underlying logic really is valid no matter what country you apply it to, and hence this holds true for the world. I want to briefly make the rich people out there, those people who fear that liberation of mankind from the suppression and enslavement of inhumane mind control technologies would lead to them being hunted down by lynch mobs, would lead to pillaging and things like that, even on an individual basis. And beyond that, of course, the dispossession from the countries from alleged communists, even though I explained how I am not a communist in the past, and so on and so forth. See, my dear rich people, the vast majority of what you own, and the vast majority of what all together makes up your lifestyle, is of no practical or actual value to me as the Prime Minister of Freiland and to Freiland. What do I mean by that? The entire financial, economical structure of the world will be completely redone. The system is advanced idiocy based on cynical, exploitive pseudoscience, and you cannot repair the current economical system. No one is going to repair it. It cannot be repaired. It is light years beyond the point of repair. It will just be turned off and a completely very simplistic new system be placed in its stead. That still has money and so on and so forth, right? your luxurious possessions will not interest Freiland, right? If you have 5 luxury sports cars in your garage, come Freiland, you will still have 5 luxury sports cars in your garage. Why? Because Freiland has absolutely no need for luxury sports cars. Moreover, we will establish an economical system where very few people will be able to afford luxury sports cars, and hence there is not really a viable way at all or necessity for Freiland to auction off your luxury sports cars. So all of your junk, all of your luxury junk will basically remain in your possession. Furthermore, Freiland has no fucking need or could put to any decent use an 8-bedroom villa that you might own, which means that you'll even get to keep your villas. It's the same holds true for your yachts. The same holds true for whatever luxurious crap you happen to own. Actual cash, though, and things like gold and things like that, you might actually see how you should all by yourself realize how you might want to share that with Freiland as a country. Yes. But what all makes up your lifestyle, what all you surround yourself with, will not be stolen from you. And Freiland will make it very clear that lynch mobs are not the way to go, and there will not even be, just because there won't be a state-sanctioned dispossession of you, we will make sure that there's not going to be any lynch mob coming to steal your precious little klumpert, which is the Austrian slang for basically what you surround yourself with in your lifestyles. All of that means that you will have no reason for the vast majority of these fears that probably go through your head. Now, I do want to point out that if you needlessly freak out over these changes to come, you might find yourself having maneuvered yourself into a position where you might meet the necessity to trade in one of your 5 Lamborghinis for a few kilograms of potatoes maybe one day, just because you do not develop the degree of trust to Freiland as a country as you should. That would be your own fault. But Freiland and no one in Freiland will steal anything from you. The system that has been going for decades and decades and decades and decades is utterly insane. It is nothing but enslavement, and this system will be ended just because it cannot be repaired, and some of the money will be redistributed, but not in a sense of stealing from the rich and giving to the poor or any such. This is a nice example of me trying to explain things to people where I'm convinced you don't even understand what the fuck I'm talking about. Still, I'll mark this off as covered and I'll skip forward to another one. It's the same kind of topic, really, or the same kind of nature to it. It says here, if I seem, and this refers to the video from 17th of June 2016, various topics. I wrote down here, if I seem, and in that video, this is what it refers to, if I seem ill at ease, and it seems kind of awkward when I address utterly insane religious people, then that is because I am ill at ease and find it awkward talking to insane people. Okay? That does not mean that I'm lying. That means there's a large part in me that feels completely ridiculous even trying to talk to insane people. But I know that some out of the ranks of the insane religious people, out of the ranks of completely idiotic, paranoid, uneinsichtig. What does uneinsichtig mean? Uneinsichtig, that is a word for the rich fellas. It says here unreasonable. I'm very disappointed with that word. That's a crap. In German that word is much better. Uneinsichtig. Uneinsichtig rich people who just don't at all begin to understand what injustice they are committing, but just accepting that that is the way it ought to be, and so on and so forth. I know that out of your ranks some can be salvaged. Okay? Even if right now you still are insane, some of you can be salvaged. I will succeed to tear some of the insane religious people away from religion and make them sane again, and I will succeed to repair the fucking minds of some of the rich bastards out there and make them see how, while it's not at all illegal, and while even in the future there will be rich people, how your worldview of wealth and poverty is completely thwarted, how it all was made possible by a criminally insane system that is light years beyond repair. I will make you understand that. Even if the vast majority of you, or a majority of you, or maybe even a minority of you only, will not be able to save and salvage, I can reclaim some of you for mankind. And that is why at all I address you, even though, yes, I am ill at ease talking to insane people, and it does feel kind of awkward doing it, yeah. But that is why I do it. None of that means, once more, none of that means that I'm lying, okay? And on the topic of me not lying, there is another little thing here. Here's a line I wrote down. What need have I to lie? That is a line actually that a long time ago I made up for a dialogue in a planned short story. What need have I to lie? And in that short story it was the completely fictive character, namely the devil, who said that line to somebody who accused the devil of lying. I am not the devil, but it applies to me nonetheless. What need have I to lie? I have not, in 3.5 years, lied about anything. There is one single exception where I did not lie as such, but where I tried to get certain people into activity. I do know for a fact that over on Crazy Albion, they read a whole lot of mumbo jumbo into their coat of arms. And I thought that when I would sick the people who do that onto the ex-Austrians having allegedly messed with their local coat of arms, that would get them into activity against ex-Austria. I tried to manipulate them. I did not lie to them as such. So in one of my I don't even know if I ever had this in the videos on YouTube or not, but in the emails I did, what I wrote how they had over the years manipulated namely secretly so, manipulated the coat of arms of the Austrian provinces and so on and so forth. That was not the truth. But that was the only instance where I actually tried, for the good reason of getting the bloody Albion idiots active against the filth here in these here parts, ex-Austria and so on, where it was not quite the truth. Everything else I ever said in any videos, in any emails, and so on is the truth. Because I am the prime protector of mankind. I am sanity. I am truth. And truth does not have any reason to lie. What need have I to lie? None. Just in case you can't figure that by yourself. So that one checked. Then I've just found out that I don't work them off top to bottom after all, but one topic leads to another anyhow. The next one here, talking about YouTube videos. Here's one that just says YouTube manipulation. I have proven, and I recorded a video, how the sound track to a particular video, not of my own videos, but pertaining to the Space Hulk video game, was actually changed to replace one word, and how the entire meaning and my comments to it and what the ongoings were in the background were tried to be discredited, and they tried to lie it all up. And that is a nice example of how they do manipulate the audio on the YouTube videos. I have no way at all of verifying if other people get to see my videos that I record with the original soundtrack that I actually recorded. I have no way of verifying if my videos at all show up in the search results and so on and so forth. I have absolutely no way of verifying that. I am fully aware of that. It's not that I am so naive and assume that my videos make it through. I have elaborated countless times how even my emails were manipulated, and I have in the past elaborated on how my YouTube videos, most likely considering how my emails were manipulated and considering how there was a clear case proof actually of how they manipulate the audio on videos on YouTube, how it is rather likely to assume that even the audio of my videos is being manipulated, right? I just don't have any other communication channel than YouTube videos. And the point is, to whatever minute wee little, very, very, very wee little degree, those who manipulate them theoretically, to whichever extent, at all or not, or a little or whatever, first have to watch them to manipulate them. And even there is a target group, so to speak, for my videos. Okay, once more, this has to do with me being convinced that I can get some people to understand the insanity of the ongoings and get some people over to the side of mankind again. Even if you completely fail to see it, even if you personally would say that's too small a chance to even bother, here I am bothering. Why? Because I'm the prime protector of mankind, you stupid fucks. And I'm well aware of that. I just want that pointed out. And of course, there's many more YouTube manipulation. The discrediting association with other videos on the side. The thumbs down the moment I load up the video. Before anybody has a chance to watch that, I get 4 thumbs down already, and so on and so forth. How that indirectly affects my videos being not fed into neutral algorithms of how videos are displayed on YouTube, and so on and so forth. I understand perfectly fine that my videos on YouTube are directly or indirectly severely manipulated, and the displaying of my videos is manipulated, and here I am doing it. Namely recording a video for YouTube, not manipulating. Now what else do we have here? Just because, just as a footnote really, yes, I know that it was actually Superman 2 and not Superman 1. What you might not know though is that Superman 1 and Superman 2 were shot at practically the same time. So when I said 78, 79, even though it might have been 80 or whenever Superman 2 came out, they did record it at around the same time, because they just kept recording both movies straight in a row and actually intermingled some of the scenes and so on and so forth. So just for the nerds out there, that's to the Zod comment and so on and so forth. What next? Right, here's another little thing. There happens to be this on the topic of Freiland, and especially the name for that country, Freiland. There happens to be a German movie called Freiland from, I think, 2013 or 2014. I had never heard of that movie ever before, and I didn't stumble across on YouTube the trailer for that movie long after I had decided to use Freiland as a name for the country that I created. I do want to point out that for the very same reasons why the fellows who made the movie came up with that name, I came up with that name. Because the way you make names in German, Freiland is a very likely end result of a process of naming a country. Also because the word Freiland is utilized in a couple of compound nouns such as Freilandhaltung, which means artgerechte Haltung, typically talked of chickens and whatnot, and Freiland will be a country where humans will be treated the way they ought to be treated. And there is absolutely no relation to that Freiland movie. I watched the trailer. It was, and I say this as an ex-Austrian, it was typical German humor, namely of the not so funny variety. It was like, man. It was a crap trailer. It probably is a crap movie. I have never seen it, and judging on the trailer, I don't wish to see it. It's a whole lot of crap, and it's, yeah. It's got nothing to do with why I named Freiland Freiland. I want to make that clear. Little news items. There is an onslaught of clearly manipulated ongoings again in the media. The only thing I want to comment, just because of her first name, is the new lady mayor in Rome. Why? Because, as people know, I happen to have something to do with Rome because I fucking protected the city's ass 3.5 years ago. Plus, she's called Virginia, or Virginia, Raggi, actually. And I did read enough reports to see how there were certain particular vote numbers that she got in particular circumstances that were very symbolic, and I understand that down there in Italy they are severely fucking around in a manipulative way with income technologies, and that yes indeed her becoming mayor of Rome was grotesquely manipulated and orchestrated by a fixed money interest group. What I want to point out here specifically is that not just that I had nothing to do with that, but I want to point out that she is not what I used to recruit for number 12, as in the somewhat unknown victim. I say this because of a first name, just on the outside chance that some people out there, namely some other IGs who are being grotesquely had and ridiculed by other IGs, she has nothing to do with the somewhat unknown victim, okay? I just want to point that out. This is probably a needless pointing out, and most probably in all of your insanity you didn't suspect that anyhow, but I just want to make sure I got nothing to do with the lady mayor in Rome. I wish her good luck, but other than that I got nothing to do with her. Yes, her election was completely rigged and made possible by a local interest group down there, but I got nothing to do with it. And at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter who is mayor of Rome. In the big picture, it doesn't. I'm just gonna cull this list a little because this is too many topics really for this video. A more general statement here. I do want to make it very clear that no collapse of society of whatever extent is necessary at all for the liberation of mankind. I do want to be very specific about that, okay? I do want to point out also how in the past I asked for nuking of certain parts. That was not in order, that was just yet another offer that I gave people. Because if you nuke the technical infrastructure, then there is no mind control because the technical infrastructure is nuked, okay? It is not that nuking is necessary to liberate mankind at all, right? So my past calls for nuking bits and pieces of the world have nothing to do with the liberation of mankind, or at least are not required for the liberation of mankind. That was just an option that I gave some people, and it is not that, I want to make this very clear, I don't need any kind of collapse of society to liberate mankind. It only takes the truth, nothing but the truth, information, and the technical nature of it all be revealed to the people. That's all it takes. And contrary to whatever you have shoved into your heads over decades, how they cannot handle the truth, I assure you they can handle the truth. They can. Because the truth is always to be handled, always. That is implicit part of nature of truth. It is always to be handled. So no collapse of society necessary for liberating mankind. I want to make this very clear. Another thing, touching back to the previous various topics video, as you might recall, I tried to elaborate a little on the human nervous system. And I am being kept talking like an idiot here, recording these videos. I said this in the past. This is still valid, right? I am running on a limited vocabulary. My phrasing skills are sabotaged and botched, and so on and so forth. Still, my trying to elaborate on the human nervous system, I want to go back to that topic and try to explain it once more. What I want to convey is that there are no superpowers or para powers or anything to be found and or harvested in your own nervous system. None of this is making man better, okay? It is just how the biology of your nervous system reacts to I'm lost for a word here. to unnatural interventions, is there a better word than that? Intrusions, okay. Interference, I like that one. To unnatural interference with it, okay? Your nervous system's lower parts cuddling together with your nervous system upper parts, so to speak, is a reaction to such unnatural shit being shoved your nervous system's way. None of that is superpowers or parapowers or whatnot. Nothing about this has anything to do with religious shit. And in this particular context, I want to remind people of the White Room incident. I'm not sure if I mentioned this in any of the videos previously. I do remember how I did bring it up in the By the Way World document and whatnot. And I talked about it countless times when they were extracting through the field. Way back when in the hot phase, there was a day where I succeeded to have my then still alive cerebellum, and I don't mean the cerebellum, I mean the cerebellum conditioning, when I succeeded to connect my cerebellum to the visual cortex. Okay? I succeeded to actually make my cerebellum with a capital C, my cerebellum connected to the visual cortex, and it didn't all of a sudden see things, because the result was in the visual cortex something like a bit of a firework going on. It was just all dazzling light and something like that. Okay? All the while connected to the extraction fields, and back then maybe, back then, that was before, of course, I deleted to the brain infrastructure. There was all kinds of lurching, idiot, religious, crazy people, and they thought that I had accessed some room of light. Oh, he is in the beyond, or some whatever crap they interpreted that as. It was simply a part of your nervous system that has never seen before get connected to your visual cortex, and it suffered an all-new sensory overload of just seeing light for the first time. Okay, that was that White Room event. Nothing about this is religious, and there is no such thing as a soul, and nowhere in your nervous system is your soul to be found, because you have no fucking soul. You have a mind, but not a soul. Not in a religious sense. In a poetic sense, I am all for saying that people have souls, but in a religious strict sense, there is no fucking soul. So, nothing about deliberately messing with your nervous system, connecting the parts of your nervous system in a way that is not intended by nature, forcibly so, brings about any religious experiences or any such. Next topic. Here's a brief, wee little one. There, on the news, but this is even not even specific to the news. There is something that I call last bullet logic. As we know, all of the interest groups out there seem so fond of the idea of having all of society crumble and collapse, and a lot of that will include war-like conditions at some point or another. There is something I call last bullet logic. I do not feel compelled to explain last bullet logic. I just want to point out that the last bullet is never fired. That is last bullet logic. Maybe, just maybe, you still find someone out there who can explain to you the last bullet logic. And as you have replaced all armed forces with certainly not warriors, but utter slaves and basically mercenary murderers rather than warriors or soldiers that deserve that term soldier, you might not even be able to find some in their ranks to explain to you what the last bullet logic is, but you might need to go to maybe hunters or really old retired service personnel to explain to you last bullet logic. The last bullet will never be fired. When you bring about the downfall of society, all those with a gun will never fire their last bullet. And in that lies a lot of realization how a lot of the delusions of what you think will happen when society has crumbled simply make poof. Because it ain't gonna play out like that. For tons of reasons, one of them is last bullet logic. I just wanted to mention this here. What else is there? This is a pretty banal one. How I come across, my coming across is severely discredited by keeping me on a limited vocabulary, by having me talk like an imbecile, and so on and so forth. The same holds true for my physical appearance. Now, admittedly, I'm not the cutest of people, but I would like to point out that I have been going for basically 3.5 years of endless torture, a whole lot of that physical torture, but even the mental torture. If after 3.5 years of torture you look anything near as good as I do, then you'd be good. But of course you are not, because you are Fex Mundi and I am the prime protector of mankind. So if you say, oh, he looks unkempt, oh, he wears all these clothes, and so on, superficial judging of the prime protector of mankind might prove a more severe mistake than you probably think it is. Once more, as sanity and as truth, I want to just let you know that, okay? So don't worry about my looks. Add to that the fact that I'm kept without any money and that whatever I get to eat is just utter junk food, not because I'm a sucker for junk food, but because I cannot afford anything other than junk food, and that's been going for 2.5 years. And the result has something also to do with my looks. Here's a topic. This would be a huge topic. I'll try to keep this as short as possible. The problem is keeping it short probably does not even give you a basic idea of the sheer scope of this topic. Europe as biggest victim, and next to it it says Thomas Sankara. Now, Thomas Sankara was the president of Burkina Faso, which, no, is not in Europe. What does Burkina Faso have to do with anything? As you know, I'm sports minister, and with all the football on currently, with the European Championship and so on and so forth, I figured I should plan Freiland's future friendly matches. And the very first ever friendly football match that Freiland will play, I decided to not have that be played against another European nation, because it would be too political. No matter how that game would wind up, whether we'd lose or win or draw or whatever, there would be too much, there'd just be too much political importance attached to that, and it would etch itself into the minds of all Freiland people forever, because they would remember the first ever game. They might forget about the second and third and whatnot, but they would remember the first ever. So instead I decided to have Freiland play against a nation not from Europe, and I figured, do I take an Asian one? Japan would lend itself to that, or do I take an African one? And I decided on an African one, in Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is a wonderful example. If you consider that in the 80s, in the mid 80s, almost late 80s, most apparently the inhuman technology infrastructure down there in these parts of Africa was still so backwater and not present that they had to rely on actually shooting him bloody dead. And if at the same time you consider how utterly, completely and utterly covering all of Europe, inhumane technologies were in operation for several decades prior to that already, which really means that when the world out there thinks that Europe was the prime perpetrators of these crimes, I will be able to explain to them and show to them how Europe was the biggest victim. There is some people who might argue that the US was the biggest victim. I am pretty convinced that I can explain to them that Europe was the biggest victim and not the US. That the US is completely victimized, yes, but they are not the biggest victim. Europe is the biggest victim. And I also want to point that out to any such in Europe who fear that the liberation of mankind would indirectly result in all the wrath of the world crushing down on Europe. I assure you that will not happen at all. Period. And Thomas Sankara is a nice example of a person that Fex Mundi wanted to remove. I just briefly delved into his biography, hardly at all. It's just bits and pieces that I read in articles that I found online, there is a chance that they actually tried to tackle him via inhumane technologies first, but that he resisted, because one can resist inhumane technologies, especially in a more primitive state as they obviously were in Africa back then in the 80s still. So instead they found an idiot they could completely subject, namely his successor, who then ruled Burkina Faso for 27 years, to be the landlord for Fex Mundi down there in Burkina Faso. Thomas Sankara was a good man. He was all about humanity. It's not that he was a Leninist, whatnot. Fuck that. If you are, I see that Thomas Sankara was a human, and for that he was brought down, quite frankly. So it will have a certain political message that Freiland will play its first international friendly against Burkina Faso, and chances are Thomas Sankara will get some kind of statue or monument, whatever, in Freiland. But the reason that I mention this topic is to explain how Europe is the biggest victim. And I want to make that clear, all the doing of the Americans considered, first and foremost to blame for Europe being the biggest victim are Fex Mundi within Europe. I want to make that clear. I am not saying that it was forces from outside of Europe that did Europe in. When the whole thing started, I mean, along the way, the Americans seem to have, you know, Charles lost power over there in Albion and so on and so forth. And the bitch queens conquered everything, and the bitch queens came from fucking America. So eventually American IGs came to dominate even large parts of Europe. But the point I'm trying to make is that the original guilt lies within Europe. The original guilt over Europe being the biggest victim of inhumane technologies lies in Europe, okay? I want to explain to the world how both is the case. Europe has itself not really, its local Fex Mundi scum and filth to blame for it being the biggest victim to this day. As I mentioned in the other video, they are severely destroying Europe right now, best as they fucking can. But Europe was to blame for that, and Europe is the biggest victim, and the world will understand that. And I also think it is very interesting to see how, as late as the 80s, they still needed to physically remove someone like Thomas Sankara, right? It says a word or two about the degree of spread and reach of inhumane technologies, and also once more bust the French satellite crap that people want to make the world believe. So that is that. What else is open here? Here's something. It says here, the torture, ridicule, and maiming of all society. This is an endless topic. On the news, there is unbearably cynical ridicule shoved my way specifically. For instance, there was just the other day in front of the ex-Austrian parliament, there was people who protested the death penalty in China and what was the other country? In China and somewhere else, people protested the death penalty, and the degree and the nature of the Austrian media reporting on that was ridicule of local Fex Mundi, Abwärmt and filth, to whom I pledged that I would have them all hung. After quite a bit of torture, mind you. Those who survived the torture would be hung. I cannot promise to all of them to be hung, sorry, because some might just die during the torture. That's a technicality, but the ideal is to get as many hung as possible. And as a ridiculing, they shoved this little protest my way. Okay, so there's some things happening in the local media that are directly aimed at me, whether you out there perceive it or not. I know I'm not being paranoid in this, but there's just tons and tons and tons of activities going on there in the world, and the way the media report about them, that is aimed at nothing other than driving mankind insane. It is insanity in all fields shoved at mankind. There is a lot of activities down the lines of turning large parts of mankind into what in German would be called Weicheier, What's the English word for that? If you're a wuss, is that the translation? What does the dictionary say? Yeah, softy, wuss. I'll take wuss here. Wimp. I also like that one. They so try to subdue society. They try to create a society full of completely irrational fears. They fear-monger all over the place, to such an extent that sometimes they try to create homophobos almost, so to speak. And they try to create a society that is full of wusses and wimps and it is just unspeakable destruction of all society that is taking place, so that no one will muck up once they pull whatever shit they pull, because they'll be too fearful, too wussy, and so on and so forth. And this is severely worked onto their heads on an individual basis. The mass population, though. So that one explained. And all of that, much of that, not all of that, but much of that is, I am absolutely sure, to some select IGs, utterly delusional and had, tried to be portrayed as the devil's doing. There is no devil, and if there hypothetically were a devil, he would not be an idiot. Okay? All that I remember how the devil ever was portrayed in whatever religious text that I was exposed to, never had the devil as an utter idiot. Okay? None of this is the devil's doing. I have explained yesterday in the extraction fields how, especially the RCC, but really a whole lot of other lurchies out there, how they have not just utterly, 100% utterly betrayed any concept of God, but moreover betrayed any concept of the devil. Fex Mundi doing out there is betrayal of everything. I have explained in the past how all manners of other concepts, capitalism completely betrayed decades ago already, tons of other concepts completely betrayed. Okay? But even with the religious people, any concept of God and any concept of the devil completely and utterly betrayed. So, and that really means, as you're still absolutely insane and religious, you're now at the point where even your God and devil shit that you worship and fear are betrayed, and you still follow down that path of religious idiocy. Which means that you are... We will find German, once more, German lends itself, I think, better than English to coining new technical terms. German is a very precise language, and in the future we will find the time to come up with particular new words just to describe the ongoings in the world. But currently I'm a little short of them, but I do want to point out to all of these doings that I explained out there in the world, none of them are executed by the devil. No, for there is no devil. But some people, stupid Pope talks about that shit all the time, how there is the devil and blah, and this is, the ongoings out there is what he's talking about, just that this got nothing to do with the fucking devil. There is no fucking devil. And it doesn't even at all work based on any religious text or whatnot. That realization, how they're even at the point, and long beyond the point of having betrayed the devil. When I realized that yesterday, and I did realize that way earlier once already, but I came to that realization once more from a different angle, I made a couple of other realizations, and they were noted out there. People did extract it through the field, and as a consequence I got wicked sick torture yesterday night again, where they also utilized a new script against me, where minute wee little specificalities of once extracted recordings were utilized to shove it in. So it was actually a script working against me, a parser, an AI script working against me, in addition to live fuckers, mind you. But it was there, and they did utilize small minute recordings shoved into the field on top of that to just trigger certain thoughts off, and so on and so forth. Wicked sick torture again. I just realized I think I wrote that down. On the topic of the nervous system, let's see, where was nervous system? Here, I missed a sub-paragraph here. On this topic, elaborate on the system and how biosabotaging in the system tree actually undermines the efficiency of trying to subdue the system with the aid of a phase. Now, what does that mean? In your brain, in all of this virtualware functionality, is a system tree. And the system is what operates all of this shit. And the system itself is sentient and cognitive, yet not anywhere near to the extent as one of your phases is, or as you are. Of course, it is part of you, but it is such a small subset that it is nothing at all like a phase. It is your system, right? What they try to do, I've explained this countless times, is illegally connect a phase upwards into the system on all manners of levels through the tree to subdue the system, and as it would neutrally just simply work off things to their crazy will. And then shoving content and instructions through the proxy field on the wavelength of that particular phase of mind that they have illegally connected into the system. Now here's getting interesting. They try to make the system insane by utilizing all manners that lend themselves, all manners of methods that lend themselves to making insane that phase. And they think they can thus make the system insane. But the system is way too little than the vast majority of these tricks would even show any effect. Right? Moreover, if, as they do, on all levels of the tree, they manipulate the subports of the system tree to completely illegally connect shit in my body, physically wise, the biotorture shit, they actually thereby also undermine the system itself at all being able to function properly. So what they're doing is they try to caper, is that the word? Hijack, capture, sorry, not caper, to capture and hijack and subdue the system, but at the same time they sabotage the system to an extent that the system cannot even properly function anymore on a bio level. And in addition to that, via the phase, they try to bring poison its way that the system, even if it were functioning properly, couldn't even make sense of, because it is merely the system and not a phase. So to my torturers, I say, I know you don't give a rat's ass, but once more I can't help bringing truth and factual reality up to your attention. Refrain from any system tree, internal support, system tree manipulation, because you undermine the system's own functionality. And take note of the fact that all of the things like all of the insane shoving via the sliders, all of the virtual identities you try to utilize on that phase that you connect into the system do affect the phase, of course, because for that they are there, but do not affect the system. Okay? You cannot mess with the system. The system, none of this technology is, and none of the virtualware was ever at all made to affect the system. The system was knowingly spared from all effects because you need the system to make all these effects possible. And the very idea that you try to attack the system like that and sabotage the system to the point of the system not even operating properly anymore, and then trying to torture the system even though it cannot even operate anymore, it's just such screaming insanity that once more goes to show to the world how far removed you all out there who torture me are from at all scientific thought and grasping from logic and from clear thinking. You are freaking idiots. And what you do does not work the way you think it does. Okay? Another thing I want to mention. Yeah, I checked that off previously. So, this is kind of like in between the lines here with one of them. I have mentioned in the past how all of you people have horrendous logic blockers, that's what I call it. You cannot think logically, and this is not because of the Jedediah effect, because of active routines placed in your heads in the functionality of the virtualware apps that prevent you from thinking logical, from thinking analytical. This is not, I say this again, because of any hypothetical Jedediah effect, to whatever degree you might have it, and a whole lot of idiotic taking things literally is worked on that. There's an integral part of that, as I explained in countless examples in the, by the way, World document. And in light of that, I understand that a lot of the things that I mentioned in my videos are probably bewildering you and puzzling you. For instance, what was it called? Downcastle. If you succeed to overcome your literary routines, you will realize that I don't actually mean Downcastle. I mean, I do mean Downcastle as in the vicinity, but I don't expect you to place me in a historic ruin for tourists, okay? When I did I think it was in to the Ministry of Defense video that I recorded quite a while ago, where I talked about Downcastle. You have idiocy routines in your heads, you have logic blockers in your heads, you have grasping blockers in your heads. You have routines in your heads that prevent you from understanding. And the point is, you can simply fucking delete them. Okay? Just go and remove these very counterproductive routines from all of your fucking heads. But just deleting them. Okay? How do you do that? You think them gone. In your trees, especially in your own tree, in the ego tree, but also with all the phases ideally, there's a field for thoughts, and you just think any content placed there permanently gone. Greatly simplified. So, thank you. I'll have more teeth pulled today, but thank you so far.